The race for Overwatch League Stage 1 playoffs is heating up. After suffering their first loss of the season, the Dynasty faced their toughest test in Week 4.
This is a ferocious squad.
First up, it's London, looking to bounce back and stake their claim as the league's top team.
The Spitfire are out there doing aerial acrobatics.
Next, Seoul faces a surging Outlaws squad riding a 16-map winning streak.
Oh, it's just a dominant victory here from the Houston Outlaws.
Plus, the Valiant and Fusion square off in a match with stage playoff implications.
It does not get any better than that.
Commissioner Nate Nanzer joins us in the studio to discuss the new patch and which league rules could be changing.
We had to put a flag in the ground on numerous different rules.
And all rise for the Honorable Judge Monty. This is Watchpoint.
Welcome back to Watchpoint, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Puckett, and I'm joined at the desk today by the whole crew once again. We got Monty, Doa, and Mr. X, and we're coming off a massive Week 3, boys.
And it's a week where Doa and I are now down on predictions because Mr. X successfully predicted New York to beat
Pure
Seoul.
luck. It was pure luck.
It was pure
it was
New
a
York
stroke of genius.
homerism
It was a stroke
from
of genius.
the New York
There's
native.
no homerism bias here. I had a feeling.
It's the
I
beard.
had a feeling.
It's those regional-based teams.
Yeah, you guys took Seoul because you guys just lived there.
Long Island
Well,
represent.
no, it's because
We were
we
talking about
factually
your
knew they were
bias,
better
not
players.
ours.
No.
That's right. There was no hubris involved
Don't give me
at
that
all.
noise.
These guys are going to be talking all show
It's a
long.
two-way
We
street,
got
Puckett.
a lot to talk about as we're gearing up for Week 4 of the Overwatch League. It's a huge week for the Seoul Dynasty. They're coming off their first loss to the New York XL. The Dynasty will now have to face a Spitfire team coming off a loss of their own. Then they'll have to deal with a red-hot Houston squad. Now, let's start with the match against London, Mr. X. You said you actually think that London has the advantage here.
I think they have the advantage in terms of maybe their DPS play, right? I think Bergering and Prophet together are a really strong DPS core, and I think they could give Seoul Dynasty some problems. You saw Seoul really struggle with Libero and Sabiel B. Sabiel B probably the best trace in the world right now. Bergering, I don't think, is that far behind him. And then Prophet, playing any hero that we see him play, the guy is just amazing. I feel like they definitely can give Seoul a lot of problems, a lot like New York.
It was very clear, I think, in their last match that they were switching to Bunny by the end because of how poorly Munchkin was performing in the Tracer versus Tracer battle. But I see a stylistic advantage here for Seoul. When we look at the aggressive style, the dive compositions that London has been playing, and how successful, particularly Seoul, was against Boston in countering that style. If London is going to win this match, I think they're going to have to show us a different look. They're going to have to actually start playing a little bit more of that Junkrat, start playing that anti-dive style, and do something a bit different.
Doe, what is the biggest question on your mind coming into this one?
Well, I mean, if you look at Seoul, the question is, what tank do they use, right? Because you've got the superstar veteran in Miro, you've got this up-and-comer in Kuki, and it's a really tough choice, honestly, because both these guys have played 3 matches each, right? Miro's performed well, but then they go with Kuki against New York, and they lose. So when they play their strongest opponent, they go for their new guy, they go for the up-and-comer. Maybe they see Kuki as the Winston of the future, but I'm not so sure against London. I think you might want to go for the veteran.
I mean, talking to Kuki himself, what he said has been he is the more shot-calling tank, he's the more reserve tank. Miro is the instinctual, aggressive tank. And so for me, I would have thought they would put Miro in against when they've played New York.
And
then put
Kuki in the London match.
In the London match where they're more concerned with that aggression. So I think we see Kuki again.
Yeah, I would agree too. I think stylistically, that's a good point. I mean, Miro is the veteran. I personally would say after Kuki wasn't able to win against New York, you put Miro and you put the veteran in for that purpose, but stylistically,
the game in New York does go to a game 5, though, right? So, I mean, Kuki he did play good enough to get them to the distance. I think we see Kuki again against London.
Miro gets them the win, though, in my book.
Legitimately,
Miro for
on your list of reasons why Seoul lost to New York, is Kuki even in the top 3? No.
All right, let's keep this moving, guys. As we're gearing up for Week 4, we have to look forward to the Stage 1 playoffs. Now, that's going to take place at the end of Week 5, and this is where the map totals really start to come into play. You can see that Houston is actually just 1 map behind Seoul when it comes to the differential. So that matchup on Friday, it's actually huge here, Monty. How can Houston hang with Seoul?
I think that Houston is great on this particular patch. Linkser has been putting up top DPS numbers when compared to other Widowmakers. We've seen that he's already in the top 4 players who have put over 100 final blows on that Widowmaker. And they've got Jake, who's performing well in the Junkrat. So this team is great on this patch. And also, can we talk about the map pool here?
Yes.
Horizon and Junkertown are great maps for Houston, and that's where they're going to be playing Seoul.
Well, in Seoul, a team that could have just looked at the way Houston played a little bit earlier in the season and game plan against them, just knowing that they're going to run Widow and Junkrat. Now we've seen a lot of different looks from them, right? You've seen Jake play a little bit more Genji over the last few weeks. Linkser playing, McCree, his own Tracer into play. So I think that Houston becomes a little bit tougher for Seoul to game plan against.
I'm going to say it, and I can't believe I'm saying this, actually. I think there is a chance that Houston will beat Seoul. And that's
There
just
is a chance?
That's big for me to say. No, there is a chance. I'm thinking that's less of a chance than that Seoul will win. I think they are the better team overall, but Houston has proven.
What percentage of a chance?
Yeah, give us
do
a
you think
percentage.
Let's get some numbers.
Okay, all right.
It's number time with Doa.
I'm gonna go. Here's where I have to shove down my bias, right? Which does not exist, by the way. There's no bias. I would say there is a 70% chance Seoul will win, and I will give Houston a good 30%.
I actually think there's a better chance that Houston beats Seoul than London, because I think Seoul's probably preparing a lot for the London match. It's a completely different map pool. I think Houston's probably preparing only for Seoul. They play San Francisco earlier in the week. So I think if you were looking at one of those matches for Seoul to lose, I think this is probably the one.
Houston looks like a tighter team than London has lately, too, in my opinion. I mean, when you watch Houston play, everything is just very, very polished. The way they go in, the way they engage. Once in a while, they get a little bit big-eyed and they'll over-pursue and engage, or they'll try to chase down a Mercy when maybe they should just let her go. But I think overall, they are the tighter team right now.
I would argue that their competition was a little bit lighter.
Definitely the competition has been weaker for Houston, but they've also won every single map in their last 4 matches. So you can't discount the fact. I agree they are looking polished, but they're looking polished against lesser opponents. This is a big test. But if they do win, and even in a crazy situation where Seoul loses both matches, Seoul might be out of the stage playoffs.
Which is nuts.
This is a huge matchup for both squads, and we have to keep this story on Houston here as we look at their upcoming schedule for the rest of Stage 1. In Week 4, it's going to be an easy battle against the Shock. Well, so we think coming in. They later have to face off against the Seoul Dynasty, and it doesn't get much easier in Week 5. They pick it up with a battle against the London Spitfire before going up against the always unpredictable Boston Uprising.
And this is where Houston's schedule looked good prior to these last couple of weeks, but now if they want to make those stage playoffs, they have a really tough road to hoe.
Now, if Houston slips up, there are some teams right behind them in the standings that are waiting to claim their spot in the Stage 1 playoffs. One of these squads is the Los Angeles Valiant, who take on 2 teams in Week 4 who are making their own playoff pushes. The Philadelphia Fusion and the Boston Uprising, of course. Now, Doa, let's start with that matchup on Wednesday against the Fusion. What stands out to you?
What stands out to me lately has been the tanks on the Fusion, man. I mean, Poco and Fraggy, it doesn't look like it should work because Fraggy is always going in there way ahead of his team. He either A, dies, or B, nearly dies, but Poco's there with him, and he keeps him alive just long enough for either the team to catch up or long enough for Fraggy to get his leap cooldown back so they can both exit. Now, while they're exiting, lots of teams like to chase. That's when Poco turns around, chucks his mech in there, and gets a 4K. It's a weird tank duo, but it works.
Or you have Fraggy Primal Rage knocking people into the self-destruct as well.
Or getting instant res as well.
There's been a weird synergy there, that's for sure. And sometimes no synergy at all, to be fair.
Right. But it works. It's been working.
Yeah, Diva Bombs for days. It's Poco. As
long as it works.
Matt, let's talk about the DPS duel that we're going to see here. Who do you give the edge to in this matchup?
I think you got to give it to the Philadelphia Fusion. I think you look at how good Carpe and Shadowburn are together and the different looks they can give you, right? I mean, Shadowburn, he can play Genji, he can play Reaper, Carpe, he can play, Tracer, he plays Widow, he can play just so many different things with these 2 players. And it's not like you have these 2 players and you switch them off of like their known heroes and their performance really dips. They play all those other heroes at a high level as well. Really looking forward to Carpe again soon in a Tracer battle.
We talked tanks, we talked DPS, we can't leave out the supporters.
Yeah, and for the supports, I give the edge here to the Valiant. Yes, Unko's performance has been up and down when it comes to his Mercy play and sometimes dying first, but I think this team has better support synergy, especially with their tank line. As Doa stated, sometimes Fraggy are getting a little bit too far ahead of himself. So I think with the support advantage and the tank advantage that they have, this should be the Valiant's match, even though I agree with Matt saying that DPS matchup isn't as good, primarily not because of Carpe versus Soon, but because of Shadowbird versus either Agilities or Sylvia.
And I think if Philly wins this match, they have a pretty good shot of just running the table the rest of the way. I think they play their final few matches. They have the Mayhem in there. They have Dallas Fuel, some pretty winnable matches for the Fusion. So I think if they get by the Valiant here, you could look at a team that could sneak into that stage 1 playoff.
Well, Philadelphia is like one of those cars in Mad Max, right? Where it's like cobbled together from all sorts of different pieces, and it doesn't look like it's going to run for more than 10 minutes, but then it's like shooting flames and rockets out everywhere, and you're actually kind of afraid of it in the end.
Monty, today you
like
are
that
a support
analogy.
specialist. I have to ask, is Kareev officially the best battle mercy in the Overwatch League?
That's tough. We've had some good ones so far. I'm not ready to put the crown on the master of the blaster yet.
I'll give Kareev the crown already. You deserve it, Friday.
He's the master of the blaster?
Absolutely. The wings and the pistol.
Only a few more weeks left.
Don't know what it is. All right, guys. So there's a bunch of great matches to keep our eyes on in Week 4, but the crown jewel will definitely be the final battle. Dynasty versus a Spitfire, and this matchup is happening on Thursday night.
Please put your hands together and welcome to the stage, the London Spitfire. This is a ferocious squad. Now it's time to introduce the most successful players in Overwatch history, Seoul Dynasty.
처음으로 리그 시작하고 처음으로 서울 다이너스티랑 붙는데 많이 떨리고 준비를 많이 해야 될 것 같아요.
There are 3 dynasties in this league, New York, Seoul, and London. Oh! Big Ben is ringing out as London make a strong statement early.
아무래도 지금 가장 리그에서 잘한다고 생각하는 팀이기 때문에
Seoul Dynasty might just be the best Overwatch team. They don't need any caveats.
약점이라고는 강팀이라 찾기가 좀 힘든데
It's all about the Seoul Dynasty domination.
런던 스피파의 약점은 제가 봤을 때는 없는 것 같지만
Are you kidding me? That is crazy. Jaehong's there. That's another one. Let's go.
This is the man to watch out for. The best stunner in the world, I think.
플레타 선수가 너무 잘해가지고 플레타 선수가 제일 무섭지 않나 생각합니다.
Another direct hit coming out of Fleta onto Surefour.
라이벌이라고 평소에 의식한 적은 없는데 라이벌로 생각을 이제 하려면 미로 선수가 있을 것 같네요.
Miro, one of the greatest tanks in the game, leading the way.
피셔 선수, 제스처 선수 두 분 다 너무 잘하시는 분이어가지고 누가 나와도 힘든 경기가 될 거라고 생각합니다.
Gesture was a monster, all 4 maps.
탑3 안에 들을 정도로 강팀이라고 불리고 있기 때문에 아마 기대를 받는 게 아닐까 생각합니다.
Hurag coming out, dropping all 5 of his teammates.
리그가 아직 길고 많이 남았지만은 첫 단추가 중요하다고 생각합니다. 이번에는 저희가 이기도록 하겠습니다.
Strong team, man. It is going to be tough to stop these guys.
런던 스피파이어 분들 저희 경기할 때 재밌게 합시다. 그때 봬요.
The Spitfire are out there doing aerial acrobatics.
서울 다이너스티 팀의 플레타 선수 머리 조심하세요.
We now welcome in our Overwatch League commissioner, Nate Nanzer. Nate, how you doing?
Good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us here on the show. Now, Nate, we saw some parity this week with upsets and 6 matches going a full 5 games in the series. What do you think of the competitive balance in the league right now?
I think it's awesome. I think the best thing for the league is if fans think that on any given night, any team can win, and I think we finally see that. I think one of the ideas that we had early on, we were designing the Overwatch League, is we wanted to make sure that all the best players in the world were in the league, regardless of where they're from. And I think something that's really cool, especially when you spend time here at in the Blizzard Arena in Burbank, is you have all the players here practicing every day. 11 of the 12 teams have their full-time practice facilities here. And so the Western players are now getting sort of every day having the opportunity to interact with and see the work ethic of some of the players from Korea, some of the players from Europe, players from China. And I think you're really starting to see everybody really wants to up their game. And having everybody here playing week in, week out, it's super exciting.
It's shown in the standings already, for sure.
Well, also it is affecting the competitive ladder because I said this coming in, but once you have over 100 professional players who are all playing in their off time off the scrim blocks, the quality of the ladder itself will improve at the highest level,
right.
And the quality of that.
And all the top 5 players in the ladder is basically Carpe and his alter.
I was gonna say it's kind of cool. You get to see like guys like Carpe, duo Q with Unco. You see a lot of different players like Saviel BQ with Jake as well. So it's kind of awesome to see that.
And let's switch topics a little bit. We've got some new players that are going to be coming into the Overwatch League because the age minimum is 18 currently. And we're not going to go into the legalese surrounding why it's 18. But there is going to be a change because previously they would have to wait till the next stage before they could play after they turned 18. You are changing that rule, correct?
Correct, yeah. So once a player turns 18 and they have their paperwork submitted to the league, essentially their player participation agreement, it's a standard form all the players have to sign. And once that's submitted and approved, they'll be eligible for play. It's one of those things I'd say, by and large, when designing the Overwatch League, when building the Overwatch League, at some point along that journey, we had to put a flag in the ground on numerous different rules. I would say everything from the schedule. People ask me, well, why are games on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays? Why do they start at 4? At some point, we have to make a decision that we think is the best decision at the time with the information that we have available. That specific rule that you're calling out is one that, in hindsight, we sort of said, well, does that make a lot of sense? Like, once someone turns 18, why not just let them play? So we're going to make that rule. And I think fans should know that all of the rules, everything around the Overwatch League, everything from the rules, the schedule, everything, nothing is set in stone for all eternity. It's not like we're not open to making changes. And I think you'll see with how quickly we're reacting to things like that, how quickly we reacted to changing the flipping hybrid and payload escort. We want to make sure that we're constantly iterating on the Overwatch League and making it better. And that's feedback from you guys, feedback from the fans, feedback from the players. Iteration is how we make games at Blizzard, and it's how we're going to make this league.
Well, I think it's great because now we're going to get to see these players sooner, and the players that turn 18 who deserve to be collecting Overwatch League paychecks, like Flower, will actually be able to play this year, and that's really exciting for me.
Yeah, I think everyone's looking forward to Flower playing, Super, Sinatra, a lot of other players, Space that can come in a little bit early. But you've had the instance where you've had to lay down some penalties from the league. How does the league come to the decisions about those penalties and what's appropriate?
Yeah, so I think most important thing from my perspective is fairness. We have a list of sort of infractions and what we think associated penalties can be. I think it's also important for us that there's escalation, right? So not going straight to the ban hammer, but sort of making sure that if players make a mistake, if there's something that happens, that there's a path for them to redeem themselves, a path for them to make good and really act the way that we expect them to act as a professional player. So there's a group of us at the league office, myself, a few of the folks from the league operations team, the legal team, and we sort of sit down and look at each incident on its own, look at it in context of other discipline that we've handed out and come to a decision and try to do that relatively quickly. Yeah. I think it's important, fairness is important, speed is also important. And I think we've been pretty quick to act on the two, actually 3 if you include the Sato ruling.
Yeah. I think it's been pretty fair and pretty swift so far. So good work on your end. Prophet, sorry about that middle finger, buddy. Let's keep this moving, though. And we got to talk about some of the teams that have been scheduled on back-to-back match days. It's been really tough for some of the players that are going into the late game and then an early game turnaround on the next day. And after their loss to the Boston Uprising on Saturday, Mickey took to Twitter from the Dallas Field and he tweeted, "I hope this is the last time that I will have to play late night and early morning after." Is eliminating this type of short turnaround something you guys would consider? Because I know as someone working on the show, it's exhausting coming into that Saturday morning.
And this is specifically targeted. I think any back-to-back match is somewhat concerning to me, but specifically the Friday night into Saturday morning. And not only Dallas has had to do that, London has also had to do that.
Yeah, so scheduling is part art, but it's also part science. And so what we actually did when we set out to do the schedule, I did not go into a room with 2 other people and a bunch of Post-it notes and put them on the wall. We actually created a model, and there was several things we wanted to solve for, right? So what this sort of Friday night to Saturday morning, we would call that that's a bad point on the scheduling. And what we did is we looked at the entirety of the schedule, and we wanted to make sure that teams had a low number of sort of bad events. We wanted to make sure that teams were playing as many games as possible at an optimal time for their home market, which is why you see London play a lot of games on Saturday morning. We wanted to make sure that fans in the United Kingdom would be able to watch that at a reasonable time for their home market. So we tried to sort of across the entirety of the schedule and across each team, we essentially created a model where we defined a score. And actually, if you look across all the teams, the score that each team schedule, it's actually almost sort of perfectly equal. You're never going to have perfect fairness, but you will see there will be things like Dallas had that rough back-to-back, but over the course of the season, if you look at it, that's not something that happens very often. So we wanted to minimize back-to-backs. We wanted to minimize late game to early game. We wanted to minimize playing home games at a bad time. So something you also notice is like Seoul, Shanghai, they tend to play more of those 8 p.m. Pacific games because those are good times in Asia. So we tried our best. I think scheduling is one of those things, again, where we're going to continue to iterate. We're going to continue to make it better. I would also say to the pro players, that's a thing that happens in sports. You're going to have tough back-to-backs. That's why you're a professional player. You're getting paid money is to be able to deal with it. It's something we want to minimize and we don't want to have happen too often, but it is the reality of scheduling.
It's the nature of the beast. And you think once traveling gets involved, it's going to be even tougher on some of these players. Right now, maybe the easiest time in their career here in the Overwatch League. Monty, we got to talk a little bit about some of the decisions that are coming up here in the league.
Yeah, to go back a little bit to where we were talking about the change to the 18-year-old rule being able to be eligible immediately, the swapping of the escort and hybrid in the schedule. I love these changes, but when we talk about when the rule book is changed, because it's happening very fluidly within the season, and even though I like the changes that are happening right now, it is concerning that the rule book can be changed to a certain degree while the season is going on because it is introducing additional variables that teams may not have counted for. So how are you deciding which things can be changed fluidly versus which things have to wait until, say, season 2 to change?
So I would say anything that we think is going to have an adverse effect from a competitive standpoint, we wouldn't consider changing. And I also say even the map change we made, we talked to every single team before we made that change. So we're not going to spring things on teams. We have great relationships with all the team ownership groups and the GMs and presidents, and we sort of went and asked every single team, are you cool with us doing this? Everybody said yes, so we did it. So I think we'll always look to make changes in that way. One thing I'll note on the 18 plus rule, there still is a cutoff by when a player must turn 18 in the season to be able to play that year. So Flower, for instance, he doesn't turn 18 until late May, I believe.
May 14th. So it's before stage 4.
Right, but we had to set a cutoff so that you couldn't sort of have a 17-year-old that gets signed and then they only play in the finals, for instance. We think that would be anti-competitive. So we had to, again, one of those things where we had to put a flag in the ground. So Sinatra, Super, those guys will come in April when they turn 18, but Flower will be season 2. Based on his birthday.
So what is the cutoff date? Because he would, in theory, Flower would be available for all of stage 4 and the playoffs.
Unfortunate reality for him, the cutoff date, we had to pick a date, and it was looking at the calendar, and I believe it's May 5th.
Oh, okay. Well, that is a bummer.
Rip.
So far, Flower. Don't worry, it'll be your time soon enough. Now, Nate, we do have to talk about some of the major patch changes that are coming, and we know that these are going to be implemented for Stage 2, and some of the changes are going to be starting here with the Mercy, the Valkyrie specifically. Resurrect no longer instant, no longer grants bonus charge of Resurrect. The speed boost from the Guardian Angel is decreased, and the duration is reduced down to 15 seconds. Mercy's not the only one, though. It's also going to be a big nerf to the Junkrat concussion mines. They will now deal less damage to targets farther away from the explosion center. Let's talk a little bit about the decision behind these and the changes that we think will affect the meta. Starting off, why did you wait till Stage 2 to put this into effect?
I think anytime we're dealing with balance, anytime we're dealing with new content, so new heroes, new maps, we're going to be thoughtful about when we introduce that to the league. We've already played 3 really exciting weeks on a certain patch. Since we have the stage finals coming up in 2 weeks where there's going to be significant money on the line, we didn't think it made sense to make those changes in the middle of a stage. And actually having the 4 stages gives us really 3 natural breaks throughout the year where we can patch in new content. So we will be updating the patch on the LAN server here at the arena in between stage 1 and stage 2.
Okay.
So what will be going into stage 2 will be the Mercy and Junkrat changes. Also, the movement changes that were patched on live recently, as well as some bug fixes and some quality of life stuff. That's honestly mostly for the observers. Like there's actually some bugs in the observer client and some things like that we're ironing out. That'll all get patched in between stage 1 and stage 2. Blizzard World will also be in that patch, but we won't be playing on Blizzard World until stage 3.
Get a little more time to practice.
Yeah, we want to make sure first that Blizzard World actually goes in competitive in the game before we start playing it in the Overwatch League. Seems like a good decision. And give the pros some time to plan it. So Blizzard World will be in the map pool for stage 3. And the Mercy Junkrat and the movement changes will be going in starting on stage 2.
Is this another thing that you actually poll the teams on as to when they would be comfortable having a new patch come into the game?
Yeah, we definitely do talk to the teams about it. I think ultimately this is one of those areas where we think just from a competitive integrity standpoint, it makes sense to finish the stage on the current patch.
Okay.
Because I think, and I'll leave it to you guys to theorize on what's going to happen to the meta, but I think a lot of people are expecting there could be some significant changes based on the Mercy changes, and we think we should have continuity through this first stage, and then we'll move on to it for stage 2.
So basically, even if we had, in theory, a patch earlier on in the stage, the philosophy of the Overwatch League will be to finish the stage before changing the patch.
That'll be our philosophy. Now, again, like with anything, if there's something broken in the game, we would talk to the teams and we'd make a patch during a stage. So I would never say never. But in general, the philosophy is to only patch during stage breaks.
All right, well, Nate, I think all these changes are awesome. I love seeing them implemented already, and I can't wait for the new meta without Mercy in it.
We all can't. I'm needing that right now, man.
All right, on his time. It's coming back. Nate, thank you so much once again. Nate Nanzer, the commissioner here of the Overwatch League.
Oh, I'm going for the Tobelstein. Woo! Oh, no. Oh, you okay, soldier? I'll bring you back up. No, these old eyes have seen too much. It's my time, Angela. That's nice. Heroes never die. Wait, what?
No longer grants bonus charge of Resurrect. The speed boost from the Guardian Angel is decreased.
Well, I guess. 2 instant reses in a team fight is maybe a little bit too much. Okay, I can see that. And maybe Valkyrie lasts a little bit too long. Yeah, okay, sure. But the Guardian Angel changes. I'm just gonna die constantly. I can't move fast enough now. I can't. Oh, it's a phone call. Who's this? Hello? Oh, Anna, it's you. Hi. Yeah. Oh, I just saw. Yeah. I'm very happy for you. Yes, that's great. You'll be a lot. Oh, and Moira's there too? Oh, good. Yes, we'll be seeing a lot more of you guys. That's awesome. I'm very happy. It's great. I'm fine. I was in every game and I could use a break. I need a vacation, so don't worry about me. I'm good. You too. Bye.
Already, and I can't wait for the new meta without Mercy in it.
We all can't. I'm needing that right now.
All rise, the Honorable Judge Monty presiding.
You be seated. Okay, let's see what type of Overwatch hoodlums we're dealing with today. Court is now in session. Our first defendant is a group, actually. The Shanghai Dragon supports are charged with 6 counts of willful failure to heal. How do you plead?
Not guilty, Honorable Judge Monty. Now, we have a very difficult job over here as the Shanghai Dragon supports. We're trying to heal Roshan. He just dives in so far deep. We don't want to get ourselves killed. Our DPS are dying left and right. We're being pushed out of all these positions. It's not entirely our fault. You can't take this all out on us. 6 charges is a lot. I feel like we can knock that down a little bit, give some of these charges to some other supports. Kellick's on Boston. We got the guys in Florida running around. It's not all about us in Shanghai. There's some other troublemakers in the Overwatch League as well.
I think I see the issue here, and it does, I agree, deal with your tank line as well. So I will give you the verdict, a sentence of a constraining order with all Shanghai supports as well as Roshan.
Well, what is that, Judge Monty?
Constraining order is like a restraining order.
Okay.
But instead of having to stay far apart, you must stay within 20 in-game meters of each other at all possible times.
You're gonna get us killed.
No, this should help keep Roshan alive, and it should help the Shanghai Dragons do a little bit better.
You're going to get us killed, Judge Monty.
Next! Our next case is against the Philadelphia Fusion's Poco, who is charged with theft of glory for hogging all the good ultimate kills through skillfully self-destructing at will, thereby preventing others from obtaining said glory. How do you plead, Poco?
Innocent. Absolutely. That glory was mine. I worked for it. And I want to say, too, that I've had a really hard life, too, right? This isn't my fault. I was coerced by my fellow tank Fraggy, who just kept going in. And what am I supposed to do? He's my friend. He's my brother. Can I just, like, let him go die? I don't think that's nice, right? I have to do that. Somebody's got to take care of him until the healers get there. And in doing that, when he realizes he needs to get out of the fight or he dies, either one, I have to go too. And when that happens, people chase me. And when they don't have their movement cooldowns, I can't help it. I just throw the self-destruct in there, and it's not my fault that they're not moving.
Okay, all right. Your story about Fraggy is actually irrelevant to the charges in play here, and all charges will be dropped. Poco can rejoin the lineup at will. We will remove Hotba from the starting lineup. I don't see a shortage of glory on this Philadelphia Fusion roster because Carpe and Shadowburn have been collecting plenty of it themselves. There has been no hogging of glory, especially in your case, Mr. Poco.
I agree. Thank you, Judge Monty.
All right. In our final case, we have one Mr. Buck Puckett, a local mechanic on Oasis who is charged with gross professional negligence for permitting cars without brakes to leave his shop on City Center. Cars that have been responsible for numerous hero deaths. Mr. Buck Puckett, how do you plead?
Well, not guilty. I don't know what all the fuss is about. You tell Buck Puckett to put a V28 in that beast and you don't expect it to hit some things? Well, telling me not to put a V28 in there is like telling Zenyatta not to float. Fellas, I don't know what the big deal is. Just a bunch of mercies, some angels, some ninjas, some cowboys dying. For me, the whole world's better off without them.
I find your ethics rather disgusting, Mr. Puckett, but I guess we agree in that it is up to the responsibility of the heroes and the professional players to stay out of active traffic. Your case is dismissed. This court is now adjourned.
Big game segment with Kellex and Dreamcasper. New England Patriots are from New York, right?
No, Boston.
Boston.
That's pretty easy. Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a soup called New England clam chowder. Maybe.
That might be it.
That might be it. I'll go with that.
Go with that one.
Oh, God. It's like Bill something.
Bill Belichick or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can't pronounce it.
I don't even know what name to put out there.
5 times.
5 times, yeah.
Oh, I mean, every year.
5 times. And 6 soon.
A trophy?
I have no idea.
Who?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Probably a football player.
Maybe punter?
Yes,
Okay,
something.
We'll go with he's the punter.
I'm gonna guess quarterback.
Yeah. Really?
Oh, that's the only
He actually
position I
got
know.
it. Yeah, we have the best quarterback, Tom Brady.
Eagles, I guess, because they're from Philly. So that makes everything better.
All right, so just like in the real thing, Boston is going to walk away with the victory here.
Oh, I don't know.
Come
about
on.
that, man.
Nick Foles Kells? Really?
They didn't even know. Okay, they had the worst knowledge. I was actually impressed with Kellix, the Danish player.
Yo, Kellix, you can come to our Super Bowl party, man.
No, he can't.
Bring your long hair.
All the guys from Philly, you don't know your quarterback.
I appreciate the love for punters, man. They're so unrecognized in the NFL, so.
Yeah, you're basically the punter of casters. That's how I think.
Honestly, Joe Meister, I know you're Canadian, but you're attached to America. You should have gotten more.
I would
of
also
those
say,
right.
Pine, it's super important you watch the Super Bowl because next year when the Giants are in it, you're going to have to answer all these questions.
The Giants will never get near
Eli
Super
Manning's
Bowl.
coming back.
All right, we're cutting Matt off there because he doesn't know anything about real sports, but we definitely do know a lot about esports. And fellas, while we may not know what's going to happen in the big game on Sunday, you think you have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in Week 4 of the Overwatch League. Let's get into our predictions, but before we get into this week's picks, we got to look back at some of your big misses from Week 3.
Why do you guys shame us, Bucket?
Well, you deserve shaming here. Nobody saw the Boston or Philadelphia upset incoming. All three of you picked it. Houston correct.
Not even the parents of the players on Boston would pick Boston.
That's a very good point, yeah. I mean, credit to Boston and credit to Philly for getting these wins. I mean, it surprised everybody, but
look, I know in these
predict that.
I know in these press conferences, Huck is there saying they expect to win every match, but we saw
He's supposed to say.
I think
he also believed that about himself in StarCraft too, and it didn't turn out so well.
Top 3 control.
All right, real quick. Matt, you're the only one answering this. Which was the bigger upset? Was it Boston over London or Philly over New York?
I think it was Boston over London. I would say that's probably the bigger of the two upsets.
All right, let's keep the show moving as we get into the picks for this week. And already on Wednesday, we see some disparity. Monty, he likes the Valiant in the first big matchup between the Fusion and the Valiant. But Dylan, Mr. Rex, you're siding with Philadelphia.
Hey, jump on the win train,
we need
Noah.
a face-off here. Monty, the undefeated face-off master, going up against Doa, who's been mediocre.
Let's go, Doa. Let's go, Doa.
I'm pretty good. Take my hand, Matt.
It's going
take my hand.
They're put together.
Take my hand.
They're more put together team than
right.
Philadelphia. These suckers are wrong. This is where I'm going to tie up Mr. X this week.
Philly's that crazy Mad Max car. Don't forget about it, man.
They're the ones who are able to stay in it better through that game.
He's got a shovel on the front,
Valiant,
probably.
super composed, better teamwork, better support players.
Everybody knows what Valiant is going to do. Nobody can stop what Fusion is going to do.
Fusion doesn't know what Fusion is going to do week to week.
High strategies from everyone, including
Valiant just has to play standard, and they're going to
Sun Tzu said that, and he was right. I win.
The brotherly love was definitely represented in the face-off. Holding hands and one good quote from Doa is good enough for this week's win. Let's get into our Thursday matches, though. And everyone is on the same page for the first matchup as Philly is picked up. Same thing in the second one as New York is chosen. Now, in those Seoul matches, no one's got faith in London. So, fellas, talk me through the thoughts here. Why do you think it's so clear on Thursday?
Again, I think it's a bad matchup. When we look at this, the way that Seoul was able to dismantle a dive team like the Boston Uprising, I'd have to see a difference, a change in the way that they were playing in order to be very confident in London.
All right, I like that answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is as Seoul has these guys dialed in, right? I mean, they know what London does. They're very aggressive. They're very riskily, if that's a word. I don't know, dangerously aggressive, riskily aggressive.
Sure.
And Seoul, like Monty said, has proven that they can hold that.
I can't see Seoul losing 2 in a row. And I think they really are just going to buckle down and prepare for this London match. I think if they do slip up, it's in the Houston one.
Week 3 was amazing. Week 4 is going to be even better. And that's going to do it for Watchpoint. Hope you guys are as excited for the show as we are. We're going to see you this week. Remember, all the action kicks off 7 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Pacific on OverwatchLeague.com, MLG.com, and Overwatch League app. We'll see you next time.